Hey, what's up, friends? It's great to be with you guys. Sorry, I'm doing this from my phone. I was in a meeting, and then those times where then you rush to get on your computer and it says it's updating in that moment. So at some point I may switch over. But and I got to tell you real quick. Let me say a quick thing about the prayer. In Chris's book, as he talks about prayer, I remember there's a part and he says, "Hey, first steps. If you're just starting out in this stuff, hey, start doing these extended prayer times, like 4 hours." And I remember being like 2 or 3 years into this, and then reading that again in the book and going, "Oh man, this is one of like the early steps." And I had not made that a rhythm in my life. So I say all that just to say, if you've not ever prayed to get for 4 hours like with us, or done that in your own context, or it's been a long time, I want to really strongly encourage you that you join the whole 4 hours next time. So there'll be a lot of people that join in for an hour, and if that's all you can do, great, awesome. But there is something about praying for a long, extended time, and I want to encourage you, block out your schedule. It's super worth it. So, anyways, that's the first thing. And then this wasn't part of what I was going to share. We're actually going to break in groups here in a second, but I thought I was going to be late on the call because a woman that's this is her first week a part of our church, so she's gone through the training. And okay, she's in. As she's driving home from my house this last Sunday, she's into agriculture and she sees this people doing agriculture half mile down the road. She pulls over, finds out it's a recovery home, starts sharing with them about disciple making. And the head guy says, "Well, I want to meet this guy who's teaching you this stuff." Anyways, I just met with this guy named Buck, and he said, "Man, we've got 40 people in recovery," and he's totally Christian. And he said, "I've had a hard time sending them to churches. It's not worked. What you're saying is exactly what I've been praying for. Yes, will you come train our people? Will you come teach us Discovery Bible Study? Can we meet tomorrow and talk about the specifics?" Isn't that rad? So just the thing of, I've been driving by this place every day with my house, and I've never turned in. And then a woman who's come to my house now once sees it, and just how God uses different people and how much of a slacker I am. Anyways, just how it was a cool story. Hey, and today we're going to actually experience the idea of being in community. And I want to give three terms of I think ways we can do this. And I'm not sure I'm given the official terms. This is just, in my world at least, how we try to live this stuff out. So in terms of, we talk about being in a team or being in community of living out DMM. And one of them is to be in a coaching group. And that's like what we're doing here. And I would say the coaching group really specifically is not this first part, the training. The coaching group is when you break into your group of 5 people or 10 people or 2 people, and you go through a couple questions of, "Hey, how's it going? What's going well? What's not going well? What was last week's next step? What's this week's next step? Is there any way we can help you?" And if you can do that, obviously on our call, we're gonna do that in a couple minutes. But anytime you get a group of people together and like maybe you're playing the role of the coach, right? That's a coaching group and you're helping one another. And that's a way to do this in community. That's one. A second is to do called a simple church or a generation zero church, where you go, this is your church. And you come together. These are with other Christians, and it's people that are all going. We say the goal is to be in 2 groups. This one, your church, and then a second one that you're temporarily in to start, where you found a person of peace and you're seeing a group grow. So we've got a group on Sundays that all come together, and we're that first hour especially is all about sharing stories of what happened this past week. And the goal is everybody is in at least one other second group that they're helping start with a person of peace and discipling people. And I like the name Simple Church more than House Church, because there's like 100 different definitions for house church, and for a lot of people, it's a group of disgruntled Christians want to have a holy huddle, which I would say could not be more opposite of what we're doing. So I don't use house church unless I get to explain it. Simple church, no one has a definition of that, and so you get to define it, which is what I like. Anyway, that's that. And then a third one is called a disciple making community. And at least in our lingo, what we would say is a disciple making community is pretty much the exact same thing as a simple church, except it's for a group of people that wouldn't call that their church. So maybe they're involved in a legacy church, and so they meet on a Thursday for the exact same reason, to get together and keep each other accountable, and they'll walk through a Discovery Bible Study. But if we called it a church, it would just raise too many red flags for maybe their legacy church. And instead of going to battle over like, "Whoa, you left my church or you're in a second church," just call it a disciple making community, and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And people can be in both, and those can, but they kind of serve the same thing. So in our area, the people that are in community and doing DMM, I talked about this last week, are either in a disciple making community or a simple church, but we're all doing the same thing. And today I just wanted to have us experience what it's like to be in a simple church or disciple making community. And there's not one way at all. But I want to walk you through the simple way that we teach people to do it. And then the longer you do it, the more you can tweak. But it's great to have at least a starting place to go, what have people done in the past? And Chris, will you put on the chat this thing I've sent, disciple making community? And I didn't make up this term. I think it came up from David Watson and Paul Watson. And it's simply just walking through 3 simple habits that you can help people get going on. And so here's what it looks like. The first thing, if you pull it up and open it, because you're actually going to use this in a minute, it's be really helpful, is you walk through, hey, any stories from your prayer calendar this last week? Maybe not everybody on this call uses a prayer calendar. It's definitely not like on the same level of scripture, so it's okay if you don't. But I sure have found, we call it the gateway disciple making habit. And for people who want to start living out the habit of being a disciple maker, I don't know of anything better, because it's a daily habit that you're doing, and you get in conversations with non-Christians and Christians, and persons of peace come through that all the time. So we tell everyone in our church, it's like not an option. You're going to do this, and if that's a showstopper, hey, our church probably doesn't fit for you. And it's such a simple thing. So first question is, any stories from your prayer calendar this past week? And there's stories every week, and someone who just jumps in. Like if you do it, you'll have a story from that past week. Then we say, hey, how about any stories from intentional conversations? And we use the conversation quadrant, which we've talked about here as well. Sometimes we'll pull out a whiteboard, we'll actually write it out there, and we go, hey, tell us about people that you know in these different quadrants. And it's a really opportunity for coaching. Okay, so they're in the meaningful conversation. Hey, what are you going to do this week to move that to spiritual? How are you going to drip God in it? And we have conversations about that. So that's the second thing. Any intentional conversation you had this last week, and we use that lingo of that quadrant and moving people through that. And I've found, for me, we take turns leading, but that's the role as the leader that I usually play most times, is helping coach and training other people to be coaches, and moving through these things, and how to move it. And then the third thing we do, and for us, is those first 2, we do it with the kids out playing. Then we gather all the kids and we do a discovery Bible study. And we do it. We'll to engage kids, we'll sing a song and then say, find a partner, or get groups of 3. And kids are very much partnered with adults and stuff. What are you thankful for? All right, we'll sing another song. All right, get a partner. Hey, what's the stress or struggle, and pray together. And then we'll sit together in a circle. And usually we have the kids read the passages. We make sure every kid, if they're old enough at least, that they're making observations and they're involved in the whole thing. And the whole process for us is like 2.5 hours. We meet at 10, we're done at 12:30 for our simple church. And we probably don't even start for the first 15 minutes. And the DBS probably takes a little over an hour to do that part for us. So here's what I want us to do, is we don't have nearly enough time to do all that. And I want us to have our normal breakout groups. But Susie's got us ready. You're going to get randomly put in a group of 4. And I just want you to start going through that process. And in fact, we would say, take turns of leading. So someone asks a question, stories from your prayer calendar. If you don't have one, you can share why you don't, or I don't have one, or if there's a story, that's fine. Or I want to start, whatever. And then conversation quadrants, and spend a couple minutes doing that. And then after that, spend a couple minutes, or then jump into a discovery Bible study. You won't get through all of it, but I want you guys to at least see this and start doing it. Some of you guys are going, I do this every week, Jim, this isn't new. Great, then just in your group, you're going to be one that's going to help. And the DBS, the passage I want us to go through today, if we get through even that far, it's more just feeling it than even getting through everything, is Acts 8, 1-8. So you'll do that whole thing, and all the questions are there on that sheet. If you've downloaded it, you're ready to go. Does that sound good? So that's what we're doing. We'll come back, debrief for a couple minutes. We're going to go for a half an hour, which is not long enough at all. But I want us maybe you've never been a part of a team like this, and I want you to see how simple it is and how you can invite people to be a part of it, and that you've got a template of how to do it. Any questions before we go all over the place in random groups of 4? I was hoping not. Okay, ready, set, break. I know that was nowhere near enough time to go through the process. But my guess is, for most of us, we've done something like that very, very similar before. But I want to give us just at least a taste of a template of, if you're thinking, hey, how do I gather people together, and I want to create a culture where disciple makers are made, we found, man, doing something that simple is huge. And so I just want to throw out, as we're going to break into our normal groups in a second and share about how things are going in disciple making, our normal questions. But any comments from that experience or from the things we just did? Maybe even you didn't go through it, but you just even seen it laid out, or you would go, here's a space also, if in a short amount of time, like, a couple sentences, here's something we do to create that culture as well. Man, for sure, this is not the only way. I'm just saying this is a way. And so I want to, hey, unmute yourself. A couple of comments here.
Well, I'll just say something real quick. Once again, fantastic concept, ideas, content, just great stuff. And it's just like every week we get in our breakout room, could it get any better? And it does. It's just fantastic. One thing that we suggested, and I know we weren't going to get through 12 questions this time, but one thing we do in DBS is we actually combine questions to the point where 8 questions has become 5. And with our high school groups, we actually have it down to 3 because they got to get it done during lunch period on campus. So sometimes combining questions can be helpful in terms of addressing issues, but getting through them in a quick manner. And our group was great. I loved the random mix-up. We by far had the best group. So
no, we did. We had the best group.
no, you were in my group, Grace.
No, I wasn't.
I know, I'm kidding.
Oh, so one thing that I loved was in the first question, it says, are there any stories this past week? So they're not looking for a story that's 2 years ago. They're looking for current, that for reaching out to someone each day. So they're planting the DNA of daily.
Yeah.
And I love that, the way that even in the questions you use, Jim, you're instilling and planting and reminding about the DNA. I loved it.
Very cool.
One practice that we do in our simple church, I shared with Adam and Barb, which felt relevant, was that before the last 2 questions, before the look ahead, we take a whole song instrumental to pray, but we're all currently believers, and so that may be too long, too much for some people. But to take a pause and pray and ask God how He wants you to answer that question, rather than I'm just going to give an answer. The temptation can be, oh, I have to say something or someone, but maybe that's not what God is leading. And to also then get in a habit of setting that DNA, like Grace said, of we need to pray about this. I need to ask God. I need to seek Him instead of just going randomly or saying randomly or being random, that He has a plan. So that's a good habit that we have.
I love that. I should write that even on that sheet. We do that most weeks too, is we say, hey, let's take a minute and just be quiet and process and go, how does God want you to answer these last 2? So that's a great thing. That's good.
Well, I want to say something. My name is Vince. I'm from Oklahoma. I was in the group with Brent, Bob, and Frank, and so all 3 of them did the questions, and I was kind of thrown in the fire. But what it showed me, because when they put me in the fire, it showed me like the accountability of following through with our steps, and so that's kind of what it showed me, that I was actually doing the DMM, so that's kind of what it showed me. It was just that I was accountable to, even though I didn't say anything to them the previous week, but it just told me that I was accountable towards my steps.
That's great.
And so anyway, I just thought I'd say that.
Cool. Let me say one last thing and then we'll break us into groups. Here's why even we wrote it out like this. We have our Discovery Bible Study sheet that looks pretty identical to the bottom part of that, without the prayer calendar and intentional conversation piece. But we wrote them to make them look very, very similar for casting vision. That you can cast vision for Discovery Bible Study pretty easily with people. If you're talking about at a legacy church, hey, let's try this thing. And they get into that and they go, hey, that's cool. Yeah, we're loving it. hey, Discovery Bible Study is actually just one part of a thing of raising up disciple makers. Instead of just thinking, hey, how can we make disciples, but how can we make disciple makers? Would you have interest in seeing the bigger piece of it? And they go, and they're, I found 10 out of 10 people say, yeah, I would. And we go, great. It's just these two other habits. And it's a really, really easy transition to move a church from, we're open to doing Discovery Bible Study, to, hey, we actually want to start disciple making communities. Does that make sense? So we made the sheets even look the same so that you can transition it. And not have to, yeah, just make it through habits. So awesome. All right. Well, hey, we're going to break into our now other groups, our main peeps, and do our normal questions.